Good evening, councillors. Good evening, staff members, and to our wonderful gallery tonight. I've got many friends sitting up the back there, so councillors, you best be on your best behaviour tonight. I've got people that will help me. We'll open our meeting with acknowledgement of country. We'd like to acknowledge the Ngadjuri and the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet tonight, custodians of the land and waters of the Light Regional Council area. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are present today. So welcome everybody, and it's nice to see you here. Do we have any apologies? No apologies, no leave of absence and no non-attendance. Our item 3 is confirmation of our council minutes. The confirmations of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held Tuesday the 24th of October. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Michael, would someone like to second that? Councillor Fabio, are there any questions, councillors, or comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. We move on to communications, and I'll keep my communications as brief as I can, as I usually do, as you are well aware. A couple of really lovely things happened in this last period, and I think one of the highlights was the 100th anniversary of the Kapunda Soldiers Memorial Garden and the work that Dutton Park are doing down there to refurbish and re-establish that wonderful garden down in the Dutton Park area. This took place on Remembrance Day, after the Remembrance Day ceremony, which is in the main street. I think a lot of people would like to see our monument taken down to the Dutton Park area of Kapunda, where this beautiful memorial garden is located. But I think under law, it has to be in the main street. But nevertheless, that we can still celebrate our veterans in that particular area. And for anyone who's interested too, there's a lovely statue down there, or bust of Dame Vivian Bullwinkle. Also, the agricultural show. This show in Kapunda is 167 years old, and it never fails to deliver. Once again, a wonderful event for all the family and lots of exhibitors of farmer and agricultural equipment, etc. And more goodies and so forth for Christmas presents. But that was a wonderful occasion and very well supported. Also, the opposition leader, David Spears, was there with the local member for Frome, Penny Pratt. It was nice to see them there and be able to have a bit of a chat and let them know what our region's doing, and making sure that they understand that although they're in opposition, they can still advocate for the things that we're looking to do. Also, the Gawler River Floodplain Management Authority. This has been very close to our hearts over many, many years, and Councillor Bill and Councillor Michael now have been long-serving members of that authority. There was a round table meeting in the city with our Deputy Premier Susan Close and our Minister for Local Government Jeff Brock. It was not a talk fest, but it's difficult to sort of walk away thinking what did we actually achieve from that meeting, other than knowing probably in many cases what we already knew. They've assured us though that they're going into batting the importance of that floodplain area and the Gawler River, and they're certainly are better aware now than what they were. So hopefully we can see some progress. We also had a get together with myself and CEO Richard with Naz McGann about the Barossa Beach Festival, an overview of past festivals and our thoughts for perhaps the future. I think we're all aware as a council that the Beach Festival is one of the major events in our region, and we don't ever want to see that go backwards. We want to support that best we can. And Naz McGann was extremely helpful in putting the position forward as to where that festival currently lies. And we were equally as positive to suggest that we will support what's put forward as best we can in the future. I don't think I have much more to pass on, councillors, so I might ask now for any councillors that have anything to report. That's try to finish. Councillor Simon.
Thanks to the chair. I will, on the 27th of October, it was the 160th birthday for the Rotary Primary School, and which and I attended that, and that was organised pretty much solely by Beck Dunn, which is the chairperson of the fundraising committee, and then our council contributed $50 million to the event, and they raised about 51 people, and it was a really good huge success, and they raised the money which will go towards a student designed outdoor communication area. So I thought that's very common. Yeah, about the place for the hard work that's really paid out. And then the second thing I did attend the Forest Solution President Association General Meeting on the 13th of November. But I don't got to say anything more because we had the President Gila's deputation there. So, but yeah, that was it. Was a good one.
Thanks, Councillor Simon. Well done. Councillor Fabio.
Yeah, three things for me. The Soldiers Memorial Garden opening with yourself and as CEO Richard Dawson, obviously. Under Road A, as now saying. And the Prince of Wales here in Kapunda also celebrated their 165th birthday celebration last Saturday evening, I believe, yeah, and we all attended along with myself and Kyron as well. And our arms were twisted to attend that one as well. That's good.
Thanks, Councillor Fabio. I'd like to acknowledge your contribution to the Kapunda Rodeo as well. It was outstanding. The event attracted 4,600 people. It's a major event on the calendar, and it was extremely well organised again. And I don't think there are any complaints at all of the serious nature. So well done to yourself as the driver of that and the committee behind you. So well done. Very much to see again next year. Anything further, councillors? Other reports? If not, we can move on. Our first deputation tonight, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce Maxine Dunn and her team from the Kapunda Art Gallery, Community Gallery as we should call it. And we're very honoured and pleased to have you read first up. Thanks, Maxine.
Thank you, Mayor Bill, and thanks everyone for having us here tonight. It's been about 4 years since I think I was last here for a deputation, and it really is to thank the council for what they do for us, and just to say what we're trying to do for the community as well. And as there are new members over the last year or so, it's good that we can put a face to a name and vice versa. So, as you know, or some of you don't know, the gallery's in its 34th year at the moment. It will be 35 years next year, which is a particularly good achievement for a country gallery. One of the things that we're so proud of is the fact that it's moved on over those years in all directions. We started in the Thompson building, and as the library needed more space, we were assisted by council to move to the Handball building, and we would have been there 10 years next year. And I don't know where that 10 years has gone. We started as a purely volunteer-run organisation, and we remain purely volunteer-run. It has its challenges, many of them, but it definitely is worth it. Our mission statement, as you can all see, it brings artists and artisans and the community together. The community is really important in that, And it's not always easy to bring the community with an art gallery. There is a perception that's lingered for a long time that art is an elitist. It's not. It's for everyone. And I think as we go on further, we can see that in health, in all sorts of recreation. My biggest dream is that one day we will have STEAM instead of STEM. I do think that we need the arts back in the mainstream curriculum. It's there, but it's not recognised. Our vision statement is to put Kapunda Gallery on the map as a rural destination for the arts. And in many ways, we're doing that already. We do enrich the community with the quality of the artworks that we have in our gallery, in our gift shop, and the exhibitions that we're able to bring in from other regions and other places for our community today. Oh, I went too far. Sorry. As I said, we've got a lot of dedicated volunteers. We have about 8 exhibitions a year, and that requires an infinite amount of work in organising the exhibition, sourcing, organising them. And then our hanging team, as you can see here, a couple of our dedicated helpers with their spirit levels and whatnot, trying to get everything looking as though it's in the right place, and it usually is. And up in the right-hand corner, there's some giftware from our gift shop. It's a specialty gift shop in that the items that we have are original, they're handmade, and most of them are from within the region. All of them are from within South Australia. So you're not going to find them in other places. It's very well, I think you find them anywhere else. One of our favourite achievements and our biggest achievements over the last few years, starting in 2016, was the Mural Town project. And again, that started with community, people talking to each other and saying, well, hang on, what can we do to fill shops in Kapunda, bring the community together, bring visitors in so that they can spend money, etc. In that photo, we have Tony Percy. Now, Tony is one of our real achievers, not only for the art group, but he was also instrumental in putting the public, sorry, what was the Memorial Garden? Yeah, getting the Memorial Garden together as well. Very much a silent achiever, but one of the gallery's treasures. The gallery, the mural in the background, of course, is the old mural, the recreation of the old town mural, which everybody was aching to see, and we finally got there. Others of the murals around the town, we now have 14 erected. 12 of those have been new ones since the beginning of the project. There were 2 original ones, one being the town mural, which was just recreated. We have about 50 volunteers in all sorts of roles, from committee members right through to people who might just deliver newspapers, newsletters to businesses in the streets and so on. We have 120 paid members at the moment, and that's in addition to our committee members. And look, people volunteer in all sorts of ways, as they do in all sorts of places in Kapunda. It's a big volunteer contribution. Our sitter hours, people who actually sit in the gallery for the stints, 2 stints each day, 10 till 1 and then 1 till 4 during the week, 41 hours a week, 164 hours per month, 1,968 hours per annum, with, as you can see there, a total of over 85,000 value.
Oh, you're in.
From this. So that's really, really important to our town and we're proud of it. And I think we should be. Our committee hours, I spent about 48 hours per week in all, 191 hours per month, 2,292 hours per annum, and again, 99,000 just over in value per year. It's a big commitment. And I have to say that from 18 years ago, when I first took the chair, probably I would volunteer maybe in addition to the sitting, I'd probably do about 4 or 5 hours a week. I'm now doing about 15, which is a really big commitment. But we do it because we love it. So there's the total volunteer contribution, 4,260 hours, nearly $185,000 per year into the community. One of our exhibitions that we have each year is the history exhibition, which we mark History Month in March. And up on the left there, you can see 3 paintings from the area. We try and keep the theme for that area within the region. So it's usually something about the region. The thing that we noted in this last history exhibition was that our youngest contributor, or youngest artist, was 12 years old. Our oldest one was 90. So we can say that we do have a diverse range of artists, and we keep encouraging more and more people, and particularly young ones, to come into the gallery, to join us and to put things into the gallery. And slowly it's happening. We are a member of the Regional Galleries Association, and as you can see there on the bottom left, they met recently at the gallery. We have an open studio first Thursday of every month. If anybody's keen on coming along and having a go, that's where you do it. 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock. Exhibitions, there we have 7 of them during this year. Quite diverse, from solos, windows, all sorts of exhibitions. Sorry, I'm a little bit past there. We're almost back to our numbers before COVID, and about, I think we're only a couple of hundred off now, so happy about that too. We have quite a few strategic priorities, and I'm not going to go through them because I don't have time, but one thing that we need to remember is that we must move on. We are moving on. I'm moving on. I'll give up at the end of my term, and I'll have some young ones take over, which will take us forward. And 3 of them are here tonight: Alice Tilly, Penelope Dodd, and Carol Tolley. So thanks everyone for listening, and we do appreciate your support. We couldn't do without it.
Thank you so much. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Collier?
I'll just make a quick comment. Maxine, fantastic work that yourself and volunteers and committee members do. I was obviously bestowed the honour of opening up the summer exhibition last year, which was, I believe, probably my first official elected member engagement. And I can only vouch for everything Maxine has said. It's a fantastic asset to have in the town. Not only does it showcase the talent of local people, but it showcases the local region. You look through those paintings, and of course, a lot of those things are familiar sights that we see every day. But obviously, you appreciate a little bit more when it's recreated on canvas. Not to say that they don't have photographic exhibitions as well, and tactile, arts as well. And I think you alluded to the fact that a lot of the items are available for purchase. So make a bit of a plug for the gallery. I think that, with Christmas arriving, if you want to get something that's unique and something different that you won't find in Kmart or Big W or whatever, I think that's certainly one of the places you should put on shopping trips. So There you go.
Thanks.
Well done, councillor Fabio. Just to close it off, one thing that hasn't been mentioned is the mural where most valuable, more likely, is the mural on the Lucas Street property, which picked up the best street art mural in Australia. Not South Australia, Australia. It was wonderful. It was created by Danny Menzel, who's a local artist, and his great team from the gallery who worked countless hours on that. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of artwork and greatly acknowledged as well. And my dream one day, and I think I've mentioned this to it, was to see a gallery trail from the Blossom and Broken Hill, and bring mining towns together of Burra, Broken Hill, Kapunda, and have this beautiful arts trail. Because each of these towns have got serious artists in them and serious attempts to display what they do. And we're one of them, and we can drive that because we know we can. And that would be a wonderful thing to happen. So thank you so much for your presentation, Mike. It was first class.
Thanks very much.
Councillors, we move on now, and we've got our friends from Brossa, and the Brossa Residents Association that brings back many, many memories to me. I can remember the early days of the Residents Association when Bobby O'Callaghan, Rob O'Callaghan from Rockford Wines, who's a very good friend of mine, walked the streets of the Brossa, banging on doors nightly to ensure that the Brossa form was retained in its present state or in a state for the future. And I don't know how many hours he spent doing that, but it was a hell of a lot. And I think the Brossa, as a region, over Robert O'Callaghan, a great big pat. I'm very surprised that he's not received some sort of major acknowledgement for his work. It's just sensational. I don't think we'd have what we've got today without Robert. But it also gives me great pleasure tonight to introduce James. James has been a friend of mine for a long time, probably from the time he's been about 4 or 5. Him and his brother Paul played with my kids, his father was my boss at Seppelsfield. Brings back a lot of very happy memories. Although he sent me to Royal Glen because he didn't want to go. I still remember that day. But it's very happy to have you here, and we're thinking of Ross always. So we look forward to your presentation, letting us know why that Ross region is such a fine area of the world.
Oh, thank you. I brought a little timer.
Oh.
I've written these notes out and have a funny feeling that I'll just be sort of casting them away at some point, so we can keep that together. So, well, thank you, Mayor Bill and Deputy Mayor Simon, elected members and staff of Lytton Regional Council for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. It is one of the privileges we get as a democratic society is to be able to have a voice, so that's something that is very much appreciated, so thank you. So today, I think I want to bring focus to the brand Barossa and its enduring agricultural legacy that I feel will underpin our regions and our communities for generations. Just even mentioning the agricultural fair of 167 years, we understand how important agriculture is, and really agriculture has no boundaries when we see this. So I thought for my first slide, I've actually, because I've done a bit of research on the people within council and also the welcome pack and stuff, so it's nice to have that available to have a look at. And when you look at your logo, it really does talk to agriculture really underpinning the region. So in fact, having a bit of a look through, one of the things that we know in connection to agriculture, and there's also a connection through the philanthropic nature of people that are actually involved in the agricultural sector. So, that this is an industry that not only has underpinned the success of townships through supporting the foundations of the community, it's done it through its local hospitals, schools, sporting clubs, but also as the very foundation of the region and the birth of their townships. So today I'm going to try to tell you a story. I'm not good at reading things, but I'm a bit of a storyteller, or so I think I am, about the success of and the economic prosperity underpinned by the agriculture and communities united for their love of the Barossa and its community's future. So it sort of comes out really of those flames of the vines, piles of vines burning in the Barossa. So, when you think about the Barossa itself and people sort of, I like to talk about the time, in the 80s during the vine pool era. So a lot of people sort of forget, that while the Barossa's has 180 years of agricultural history and viticultural history, there were certain times where that agriculture was nearly absolutely going under. And the 80s was very much a part of that, and that was the vine pool era. And so with that vine pool era, it's often to understand how we got to that point, because when you look at the history of the wineries around the area particularly, they date back to the 1840s. So, it's a pretty rich history. And so really it was a lot of farming communities and families that started those wineries. And really, to me, it was around the 1960s. It was the Penfolds family. They went public for the first time as a publicly listed business. And by the 70s, the Penfold family, unfortunately, lost total control of their family business. And because as soon as you go public, you're basically at for sale. And really, for the first time in the wine industry, there was money injected into the wine industry that didn't actually come from selling wine. It actually came from investors. And then the likes of the Seppelts family, they had to keep up with the Penfolds family, so they went public, and then they lost control of their family business, and so on and so forth. So it was quite an interesting time. And then at the same time in the 1970s was the development of irrigation. So this was all technology that came out of Israel. So that was all of a sudden, you went from, growing grapes at the absolute whim of Mother Nature to actually being able to control your volumes and quality and get more consistency. So therefore, supply started to become more and more reliable. Introduction of machine harvesters, machine pruners, the commercialisation of wine, the big Vitamatics, So all of a sudden they were able to do things at quality and at scale. And at the same time, like the agricultural fairs of the day, they had the wine show circuit. So interestingly enough, the wine show circuit drove quality, and a lot of those qualitative measures actually came from people that came out of Roseworth. They talked of science. Like I had a gentleman called Ray Beckworth. He was 93 years old and was a guest speaker at our winery. And he basically was employed by Highland Penfold. And the technology that came from those sorts of eras about cleaning wines, making wines fresh and clean. So when you got a gold medal for a bottle of wine, you actually got more sales. So it was very much driven on quality, but also at the same time, these companies just wanted to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so there was this race to the bottom and eventually just imploded. So in 1985, a ton of Shiraz in the Barossa was worth $150. All the farmers were telling their kids, stay at school, there's no future in the wine industry. In fact, when you look at my brother and my age, we were sort of a lost generation. We weren't exporting anything anywhere. So therefore, the wine industry had imploded. There was sort of, farmers were screaming for help. And so that's when the government introduced the vine pool scheme. They offered the farmers $1,500 an acre to rip out their vines on the basis that they couldn't plant that land under vines for 7 years, which meant that land would not get another berry for a decade. And if you're looking for quality wine production, you probably need to add another 5 or 10 years. So that decision to rip your vines out was a 20-year decision. It was an incredibly, big decision to make. But for some, they were desperate. And at the same time, there was a massive drive for development in the Barossa. So there was actually a plan to put farming, like 5-acre farmlets along the whole valley floor, so from Bethany through to Nuragupta. So that whole viticultural landscape that had sat there for generations was about to disappear. And it was Rod Schubert's 40th birthday, where the likes of Robert O'Callaghan, the Walk family, the Lehman family, they came around and said, geez, guys, if we don't do anything, we're going to lose our viticultural heritage. 140 years washed away. So that's when they formed the Barossa Region Residents Association, and really went on about trying to then lobby local council. There were 6 councils, I believe, that covered the area at the time. They had to lobby state government as well. And fortunately, they had the ear of Susan Lenihan, who was the planning minister back then. And she eventually said, well, I better meet these people, just to find out if they're, vigilantes or whatever it is. So, but then they billeted her out, and she met other farming families, viticulturalist families, and explained the wine industry does this and that. And after 2 weeks of sort of doing her research, she went back to Adelaide, and with the tick of a pen, she said there'll be no development in the Barossa for 2 years. And what they asked for was time. They said, look, we will help deliver a plan that can reduce prosperity back to the region, but we need support. So they got time, which was the important thing. So then they came to the developers with the council and said, right, how are we going to do this? How can we appease everyone? Where are the compromise points? So they actually drew town boundaries around those villages that had the infrastructure. So the Tanunda, which was part of the Langmole original village, Lindop, Newry, Angaston, and so on and so forth. So that's where they said that's where the housing can go. Outside of that, you needed a minimum of 80 acres of land to put a house on outside of those town zones. That was really because they wanted to put agriculture back as the first and foremost fundamental thing we need to protect. Because the one thing about agriculture, as a lot of people in this room involved with agriculture, is it is the gift that keeps giving. Every year you'll get something for your hard work. So therefore, the Vine Pool scheme, I suppose, brought the community together, and they were able to then resurrect the Barossa from that. And at the same time, the Australian wine industry introduced the Masters of Wine that came out from England, and they in turn started tasting these wines from Australia. And they went back to England and just said, to all the wine buyers, you need to get to Australia because they're making wines of an incredible standard and at an incredible price. I think it was 49 cents to the dollar, thank you very much. And so then they came down and they would taste the wine and go, that's great. How many cases have you got of that? About 10,000, okay, and what's about $5? Okay, all right, well, we'll take all of that. Now, what else have you got? And so in 1985, that ton of Shiraz was $150, and the farmers were telling their kids to stay at school. By 1990, that same ton of Shiraz was $2,000, and the Barossa was reborn again. And so based on that, the Barossa has really reborn itself on the basis of agriculture and putting agriculture first, but also on an authentic tradition. When you look at the Barossa and you go around and you look at a lot of those wineries, you go there and you will see those old farm buildings, those old houses brought back to life and really give something to the world of wine that they don't really get anywhere else. So on that, the next part really of the Barossa brand. So after all that pressure, what we have seen and what was majorly concerning was the 2030 population plan as the overlay. A lot of people saw the growth of Mount Barker on the agricultural landscapes of Mount Barker, which just exploded. We've seen the drive down south around McLaren Vale, and obviously wherever they're building infrastructures to move people, that's where they want to plan housing. So as a region, after working so hard from coming back from like the depths of despair into like a global brand worth like $1.2 billion today, they needed some protections. And it was actually Leon Bignell from McLaren Vale that was driving it. But what he wanted is a united front. So McLaren Vale and Barossa came together. And as Barossa does, we like to unite with like-minded people. And so therefore, the government, in their wisdom, decided to bring out the Character Preservation Act overlay. And as you can see here, I've got this off the SA Planning Portal, which is a great tool. The green line is obviously the Light Regional Council boundary, and then you can see the Character Preservation overlay. So when you look at town growth, the only town really in Light Regional Council that really focuses is Greenock. So Kapunda, Freeling, Wasleys, Hewett, Roseworthy, there is nothing that stops those boundaries or towns from growing as much as you decide they need to grow. But importantly for us, it underpins the region and puts agriculture back first and foremost. So those rural landscapes are so important to our brand that when people travel the world, and we get lots of international guests, you drive them along through Seppeltsfield, down through Maranenga, the little parishes, those little towns that were developed on those estuaries that come through the gullies. There's a church at its centre point. And so all of that authenticity, they drive around and they're just amazed by what we have to offer. So for me, I've got one more minute. So if I can finish, I would just like to sorry, I started on time, just that fraction late. So what I would like to say is that we just had a group from Champagne, Champagne, one of the most premium regions in the world, and met with Scott Hazeldine, head of Barossa Australia. And they said, in the end, they basically said, if only Champagne had a Character Preservation Act. So our whole goal really is to honour the past and all those people that have worked like the O'Callaghan's and the Lehmans by protecting our future. And that's what we look to you guys to do as well. So thank you very much. Would you have any questions?
James, Councillor Taylor, any questions for James? If not, that was powerful. And that was very well put together. Thanks, James. It sort of paints the picture very clear. And we're supporters of the character preservation overlay. We've proved that. And we've had an issue, of course, in the last few years to trying to promote that part of our region with the rest of our region. I think we've made a, extremely good compromise in what we've done with our country to keep that away and protect what you're talking about tonight.
But just on that, why is it in a threat in the SWOT analysis on the Light Regional Council? SWOT analysis.
Why wasn't it?
No, why is the Character Preservation Act marked as a threat in the SWOT analysis?
Well, I couldn't answer that off the top of my head.
Oh.
I think it would be.
It is.
So, okay.
Yeah. In brackets, it says opportunity next to it, but it's just mentioned in threat. So I suppose that's really where I wanted to highlight the fact that it doesn't threaten any of the development population growth aspirations for Light Regional Council.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah.
So I need to get that into context of why it says that, and we will.
Oh,
But it's interesting. It's interesting to hear the Quenox there, of course. We knew that. I remember very clearly the Masters of Wine when they came out here. I was at the dinner at Maggie Beers when that happened.
yeah.
It was an extraordinary night. Maggie had her arms full deep into some on pudding or something. She was made amazing times.
Yeah. Food and wine brings people together.
Started the food to show Rossiter to the world. And what you've done tonight has taken us on that journey again, and we thank you so much for that. And believe me, 46% of our council region is in the Barossa. We have a big lot of skin in the game, and we will look after that and promote that where we can.
I think agricultural prosperity really has no boundaries.
Certainly doesn't, but we've got tourism boundaries, of course, in terms of how we promote that. So that's what we're trying to get at, I suppose. But thanks again for your presentation. It was excellent. Just thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Councillors, we move on now to our last deputation, which maybe it's up with the Freeling Code Amendment. Now, I might need some help with this because I think the gentleman, Andrew Humby, is not in the room, but I think he is on the free. Must be somewhere in Hawaii or something.
That's probably going to find something, isn't it? You can see.
Yeah, it might be just a clue. So, thank you, ladies. Hope you enjoyed our council meeting.
There he is.
Andrew, welcome to Light Regional Council.
Hello, thank you.
Hello, thanks.
I do appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, sorry you can't be here tonight, but we understand this. At least we're fortunate to have the technology.
Yeah, I had intended to be there tonight. I had a conflict with another council meeting and I just couldn't get there in person, so my apologies. I had also intended to appear in the October meeting, but they actually had a conflict with the public consultation period of the Freeling Code Amendment. So I'm here now. I apologise, I'm not in person. But there is a presentation just as a bit of a guide to assist, to pretend I am there in person. Corey, are you able to put that up on the screen? Oh, there we go. Brilliant. Thank you. And I'll use this as a bit of a context in the guide for discussion. Can you hear me well enough? Hello, can you hear me well enough? I'm not getting any response, so I'm just curious if you can hear me, that's all. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you, so
Okay,
we'll
great.
mute,
You
and
can.
then you just continue talking.
Okay, fantastic,
Thank
thank you.
you.
My name is Andrew Humby. I'm from Humby Consulting. We're the planning consultants helping the landowners undertake the Freeling Code Amendment. If you can go to the next page. So I provided a deputation to council back in December last year, just to give an insight in terms of the the initiation process and the intent to go through this rezoning process. Council staff through council provided a response on the 19th of December, which that package of information was provided to the Minister for Planning. Shortly afterwards, the Minister agreed to commence this process in April, with a public consultation period commencing last month on the 10th of October. That 8-week consultation period concludes on the 5th, which is next Tuesday of December. Next page. So what is proposed, this might come back to you, or some of you may be aware, the code amendment seeks to rezone the sort of northeastern portion of Freeling Township from the rural zone to the suburban neighbourhood zone. It's 2 lots sort of south of Borrow Street next to the Freeling Cemetery, and 5 lots sort of north of the Borrow Street. Essentially, it's looking at facilitating approximately between 200 and 230 residential allotments. They vary, minimum 600 up to about 1,000. They're the indicative sizes we're proposing at the moment, with an understanding of probably on average about 800. That's in the context of those that are closer to the existing township will be small allotments relative to those that are closer to the sort of the boundary of the township, at the sort of the larger allotments. Next page, please. As part of the consultation process, we sought to provide some concepts for the community to help provide a bit of an understanding of the general intention of how development may unfold over time. Appreciate a concept plan, as the name suggests, it is a concept and does need to go through more of a detailed process should there be an agreement to move through the process, and rezoning may or may not be agreed to. But it helped to sort of provide the community with an understanding of potential outcomes that could be sought in those 2 distinct northern and southern sort of sections. We've through the code amendment process, there are also a number of concept plans that would be included within the planning and design code should the minister agree to this proposal. It looks slightly different than that, but it's a general intent in terms of illustrating infrastructure, stormwater, road access, and interface sort of matters. Next page, please. So the 8-week consultation period commenced last month. As part of that consultation period, we sent out approximately 500 fact sheets to landowners and occupiers. There were 2 drop-in sessions held at the farm centre on the 20th of October and the 24th of October, with 8 residents or community members attend the first session, which I think that was one of the elected members attended as well in that session. And the second session had a larger number of 16 or so. As indicated previously, consultation finishes sort of next week. Next page, please. As of the 22nd, when I provided this sort of presentation to council last week, we had 56 written submissions. Actually all of those were done through the Plan SA website as the standard template responses. Fair to say the majority of those did not support or do not support the proposed rezoning. And those key issues identified through that process, I've listed the key ones here on the screen in front of you. A key one that was indicated was the impact on the adjoining cemetery, primarily the issues associated with the interface and the transition from that space to future residential to the south and east. And in particular, it was reference to the morning sun that was quite prominent when people visited loved ones in the cemetery. Interesting, through the consultation process, there were actually a few people that, whilst not supporting the intention, did provide some good feedback in terms of possible improvements to the policy situation, such as not allowing two-storey in certain areas so that any development was not noticeable from the cemetery, and creating a vista through some of the areas from the cemetery to off to the ranges off to the east. Loss of views was an issue that was raised by landowners that adjoined the subject land. Loss of agricultural land was raised by a number of residents. Stormwater drainage was similarly raised by a number of residents. Traffic implications, particularly relating to the Teal Highway and Borry Street intersection. Potable water, which I think everyone's aware of, the challenges we're currently facing with SA Water in the region, not just Freelink per se. There was support for a need for additional housing in the community. A number of residents said they actually are finding it hard not just to purchase properties, but even finding rental properties in the area. And the last but not least is certainly related to the two-storey heights, which was quite common with a number of residents. Next page, please. Once the consultation period finishes, there's a process under the Community Engagement Charter that we seek to follow, which will summarise the key issues for those that have put in representations and provide them with a summary of the next steps for this process. My details have been conveyed, personal details, number and an email address have been provided to residents to contact me directly should they have any queries, and certainly will be in any future correspondence provided to those residents. But a key part of this ongoing discussion, which has certainly been raised by council staff in an agenda item later on tonight in your meeting, relates to the provision of infrastructure. The SA Water matter is one of key consideration, which we acknowledge that both state, local government and private enterprise are all working in this space to try and find an answer to the SA Water, let me say, its challenges. Certainly access, traffic with council and the Department of Transport will certainly be considered. We are awaiting DIT's comments through this consultation period. We've yet to receive those, which will ultimately resolve in the resolution of some infrastructure agreements. So there will be some working hand in hand with council and agencies to seek to resolve these infrastructure matters to determine if the proposal is feasible. Once that matter, or if that matter is resolved, then this information would be conveyed to the Planning Minister for ultimately his consideration sometime next year. I put it to the floor. If there's any questions, I'm certainly able to respond to that. I know that you have an agenda item later in the evening, which may provide that opportunity as well to further discuss that. But certainly open to answer any questions if you have any at the moment.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillors, any questions at this stage? Councillor Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Bill. Thanks, Andrew, for your presentation. So noting 56 submissions were received that were mostly in dissent around this in principle. In the process that you've outlined moving forward, how do you overcome some of those concerns? I don't see the step that says this is how we're going to deal with 56 responses that we received.
Look, there are certainly some matters that we can look to provide a response in any updates to the policy framework. One of the key things that has been evident in the community is the suggestion of two-storey development within the area. That matter has actually been discussed previously with the landowners, but we're curious to test the community's appetite to that idea. It's evident through these types of discussions, that is a topical issue where the community is wanting more along the lines of single story. So there are some policy positions that we can seek to amend what would be in the planning design code. Naturally, through this process, there are always submissions which may be against the proposal. We have to respond to each and every one of those to determine if we can respond to those. If not, why not? And how we may be able to sort of, if possible, seek some sort of compromise.
Further questions, councillors? Councillor Simon?
Thanks. You mentioned about the infrastructure issues with infrastructure, specifically the potable water supply, and we are all aware that there's some augmentation work would need to happen before any allotments can be created. So I was wondering, that there was a proposition that the developer could fund these works and bring this process forward. Do you know, or do you have any information on your appetite on doing such a thing?
As part of any proposal, there's always a requirement for some level of investment by landowners or the proponents to assist with the provision of infrastructure. That might be hard infrastructure, social infrastructure, community infrastructure. So there is a range of different expectations and requirements. Part of the challenge with some of the infrastructure upgrades, such as upgrades to the Teal and Borrow Street intersection, has already been flagged that the landowners would fund that type of infrastructure upgrade. Similarly, sort of access off Borrow Street would be paid, or certainly as part of an infrastructure agreement undertaken by the landowners itself. The SA Water element is a little bit more challenging because it's not a simple connection from a nearby portion of SA Water's infrastructure. It does require a large trunk to be augmented and extended to enable both increased volumes and increased supply to the township. The part of the challenge with SA Water is actually locking them into determining when they can actually put that on their short to medium to long-term plans. Once we're able to decide that will help to determine what level of infrastructure input and fee input will be provided by the landowners. That will certainly be fleshed out following the consultation period with both state government and your council representatives.
Thank you, Andrew. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Fabio?
Just a quick one. On the map that you showed before, it wasn't quite clear on the screen. The section that's south of Borrow Street, there appears to be two exits that go directly onto Tilly Highway. Is that the case, or is that just a bit unclear?
No, they're internal roads. But no, there's no access from those areas into Teal Highway. That we did engage traffic consultants to review what would be considered appropriate. And no, there is no direct access onto Teal Highway. It's a 100k road. It's just not in the proposal.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, so much. Certainly your journey through the consultation process too was very interesting from our perspective. This has been a long journey to get where we are at this stage. We've got a journey a little bit later in the evening when we'll discuss this matter in relation to the submission that council will have prepared, and I'll be looking to analyse later this evening and for submission to the planning portal. So thank you so much for your presentation. It was much appreciated.
Greatly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure. All the best. Cheerio. Councillors, used to that. We move on now to section 8 of our council meeting, which are our action items. Tradition says that we'll just call them by page, and if there are any questions, please just put your hand up or your button on. 8.1, the action items, first one on page 6. Councillor Peter?
Yes, page 6. Oldham Street project. There seems to be some kind of delay involved there, and I wonder if we could have that explained to us.
Certainly. Megan, can I pass over to you?
Certainly, through the chair. The contract fell through for the first 2 allotments purchased by one purchaser. Council have retained the deposit and the allotments are back on the market with a contract about to be signed on one of the allotments already.
Thank you, Megan. Further questions, Councillor Peter?
Is going on from that. So you have, so the original bidder or purchaser, potential purchaser has ceased an interest in it now.
Yes, the contract has been terminated.
Mm-hmm. And supplementary, have you further potential purchaser or purchasers?
Yes, through the chair, there is already an interested party willing to sign a contract again on one of the remaining parcels of land.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Councillor Peter. Further questions on page 6, councillors? If not, move on to page 7. Move on to page 8. Councillor Michael?
Yep, no worries. Thanks, Mayor Bill. Just in relation to preparation of the Light Region event strategy, just note the update that the work's paused while resource recruitment occurs. Why is that? Why isn't it progressing now?
I might pass over to Kyron to answer that. Thanks, Councillor.
Yeah, through the chair, we're just experiencing some internal resourcing challenges at the moment. So we're just recruiting another officer in that space that will have expertise to, continue that through. So we're hoping to have that person hopefully on deck start of next year.
Thank you, Kyron. Any further questions on page 8?
No.
Just following that, so nothing's happened since we've started in April, really, or since we decided to do it internally.
Through the chair, so we have a draft strategy that is being reviewed internally. However, we don't have that lead person to coordinate, I guess, all those review comments. I personally think the document still needs some work before being presented to council. So hence that's why there has been work undertaken, but not to an extent that, in my view, it's palatable for the council.
Yeah, thank you, Kyron. So hopefully we'll see that early in the new year. Any further questions on councillor on page 9, councillors? Councillor Simon.
Yes, the policy review car park fund policy and related matters. So I know there's an item later on, but I just wondered, it mentions here further report to be provided when information available from state government. So we will have a motion later on that's asking for a report on this. But if we don't get any further advice from the state government, it seems a bit pointless. I was just wondering, is there any way knowing when the state government's going to grace us with further advice?
Thanks, Councillor Simon. Craig, any information on that one?
Thank you, Mayor Bill, and through the chair. Certainly, I'm aware of a group working on this. In terms of when that advice is to be received, I had hoped it would be earlier this month, but it hasn't turned out that way, and I have held off following up, but I will be doing that again soon to see if there's been some progress. It's unfortunately, we are waiting just to have that guidance that we can have to provide back to council to assist with progressing this, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Craig. Further questions on page 9, councillors? Councillor Michael.
Thanks, Mayor Bill. Just in relation to the planning and zoning options for the railway precinct at Kapunda. What was the feedback from DIT from the meeting on the 16th of November?
Thanks, Kyron.
Yeah, through the chair. So I guess the key pathway that we discussed with state government was a boundary, what do you call it, a boundary realignment on that site to excise off like the Goodshed parcel. They certainly were keen to retain the corridor in its disused form, but certainly the opportunity there, much like the actual railway building itself would have done many years ago, excised off and sold off. So that's the pathway that we explored. The rail corridor lessee, Aurizon, certainly are still the lessee of that corridor. So they wanted to talk through what that process might look like, and that's where we haven't had a response back yet. So I'm continually chasing that up, and I need to do again. So once we've got feedback from Aurizon, that will certainly be something we can report back to the council.
Thank you, Kyron. Further questions, councillors, on page 9? Councillor Simon?
Just if I can ask a further question to your comment, if I remember correctly, that Goodshed sort of partially sits over the rail track. Doesn't that rail track go into that Goodshed? So how can you keep the corridor and the shed separate, or is that not the case?
It's through the chair. So, I mean, the rail assets aren't in any sort of form that if you were to send rail down that corridor again, you'd have to build new rail. So they're essentially just protecting the land in terms of a corridor. And if you have a look at rail corridors, whether it be through Roseworthy or Kapunda or any sort of townships, they do a lot of this, and they're quite narrow in areas. But so they just want to protect a continuous corridor. So yeah, whilst there's some rail track assets on that Goodshed footprint, that wouldn't necessarily be used for any sort of future corridor.
Thank you, Kyron. Further questions on page 9, councillors? If not, we move to page 10. Questions on page 10, councillors? Or page 11?
Yep.
Fabio.
Through the chair, I'll just note, and this is the second time it's been mentioned in this forum as well, item down the bottom, the Jason Norman item dated 24/10/2023, says motion, lacking information there to go with that.
I might have to pass that through to the keeper.
No, it's just the way in which the information comes through from our system into it. But I think you've followed that up already with them for a change. It's a program.
Okay. You comfortable with that, Councillor Fabio?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was a bit.
Just a reminder.
I was a little bit miffed with that, where it said motion at the top, then there was no motion there. Councillors, have got nothing further on page 11. We'll move to the, Colin, sorry, Councillor Colin.
Oh, yeah, I had one from page 10 actually, sorry about that, but it was just from Megan, it's about Clare Road. I see you've notified DIT. Have we heard anything from them? There seems to be quite a list that they have got to get back to us on, doesn't there?
Through the chair, the that particular action item relates to the design for Clare Road that council's undertaking. We've advised it that we are doing a design, and they're waiting to hear what our design looks like as well.
Thank you, Megan. Page 11 we've done. We're on to page 12, councillors, which brings us to item 9 on our agenda, which is recommendations from the committee. The first one is our governance advisory panel, and the recommendation at the top of the page says that the agenda reports and minutes of the meeting for the Light Regional Council Governance Advisory Panel meeting held Thursday, 9th of November 23 be received. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Fabio? Someone like to second that? Councillor Simon? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Councillors, are there any items you would like to have withdrawn? Councillors, are there any items that you'd like to have ask questions on? Or are there any further updates from council officers in any of these matters? If not, our recommendation 2 is that the reports and recommendations of the meeting of the Light Regional Governance Advisory Panel meeting held Thursday the 9th of November, numbered 1 to 4 as listed below, be adopted. All those in favour? Oh, I needed someone to second that, sorry. Councillor Peter. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. You might note in those reports there that Graham Gunn has retained his membership of that panel, and we're very honoured to have someone of his calibre and his experience, but he's moved aside for Ted Burt, who is familiar with most of the people in here, who was at a couple of meetings ago at our meeting. That Graham was the Speaker of the House of Representatives in Adelaide for quite so many years, and very experienced in these matters, and he runs a tight ship. We're so pleased that he's been able to stay on. We move. Oh, okay. We move on now, councillors, to the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, and the recommendation at the top of the page is that the agenda reports and minutes of the meeting of the Light Regional Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting held Tuesday the 21st of November be received. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Dean. Would someone like to second that? That these reports and minutes be received? Councillor Lynn, all those in favour? Those against? That's covered. We must vote, councillors. Before we move into these subjects, I might introduce you to Nigel, just to give us a little bit of an overview of that meeting. It was a fairly in-depth meeting the other evening of the Audit and Risk Committee, being the end of the year auditors involved in all of that. So it was a fairly heavy going, certainly for someone who's not all that familiar with numbers. But thanks, Nigel, and I think you'll give us a decent overview of what actually happened.
Thanks, Mayor Bill. There were a number of inconsequential items on the agenda, but the two major ones there was the budget review. The budget review had formally putting together the many of those carry forward budget items that you'd previously approved, but so they've now been incorporated, and also incorporated 150,000, which had approved previously too, for the Clare Road design. The budget review that we undertook had a few challenges to it, and we haven't addressed one of them, which is causing a little bit of angst around the place, and that is a considerable amount of roadside dumping that's occurring, and that's costing us a considerable amount of money. The reason why we haven't done anything specifically at the moment is that it's pretty much a guess as to what that's going to cost. But at the next budget review early in the new year, we're going to have to address that and actually put some funds towards it. By then, we probably have a good idea what the trends are going to be. As what you can see on the screen, probably the main item for the evening was the auditors turning up to talk to the committee about the annual financial statements. A couple of things that I really need to talk about is that, well, first of all, one of the reasons why it's particularly important that we approve these financial statements at this time of the year, because under regulation we're required to provide them to the Grants Commission by the 30th of November. Apart from that, we also have to finalise our annual report next month. The important things I need to talk about, though, is that if you look at the recommendation, and we go to the next page on the screen. Sorry, it's probably the previous one. So the bits, sorry. That was it. So in the first part of that recommendation, note that the recommendation to you about adopting these statements was subject to the proviso that there be no major changes or significant adverse findings from the external auditors. And if you'll see in note 2, it also talks about the only changes we can make to the statements are minor and non-material. Most of that wording is somewhat subjective, but what I want to do is give you some confidence about the changes that are actually made. So you see that? No. I'm at the statements that have been made showed an operating surplus of 770,000 as a consequence of a number of adjustments. Most of them have no financial consequence. The surplus that will be in the final version is 760. So I think that probably meets the test that there hasn't been a major change in terms of the operating result. In terms of the statement of financial position, the balance sheet, the result that was looked at has been amended. Those of you that were there would have noticed that in the operating result there was an amount in there which is a valuation amount. It's not cash, of 1.791 million, which is the developers giving us some assets to look after for the next decades. That the other side of that entry didn't appear in the assets, in the fixed assets, in the infrastructure assets. So that's been adjusted again in terms of 230 million or so of assets, and being of a non-expenditure cash nature. That's pretty immaterial. So I think that makes the test. So they're the major changes that have happened. I had been hoping to lay on your table tonight the final audit report, and the question I was asking Andrew, the financial controller, as he walked in, is has he got it yet? But it hasn't arrived. It might arrive in the next few minutes, but again, that's not subject to this necessary adoption. What Andrew has done, he has provided answers to all the questions the auditors have done, and have and presented them with a final set of financial statements. I think that's all I need to say at this stage, Mayor Bill, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Nigel. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to this very in-depth audit and risk committee report? Councillor Collin?
Yeah, I've just got a question. So it's basically an adjusted operating surplus ratio you've got in the graph here. So it's gone from 2020 to 5.8 down to minus 3.1 this year, and that's also talking about your 1.7 million. So this year it's actually dropped from 4.1 to minus, so it's 7.2 drop. And is that a trend, or is that it's going down and we're going to be looking at deficits in the future?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. It couldn't be described as a trend because the final result, without getting into too much of the complexities of the accounting, is that the final surplus that we're showing is 760,000. Now, we started the year with a budget pretty much in a balanced position of 60,000. So the adjusted result, after taking into consideration the amounts you're referring to, after taking consideration receiving the Grants Commission grant in advance, is effectively about $10,000. So it's a break-even situation, pretty much in line with the budget. It's not a trend. It's pretty much as expected when the budget was set. That's not to say that there aren't underlying challenges in these results. You would have to say that it to have a very small surplus like that in the year that we've had is somewhat of a surprising outcome. We've experienced significant increases in materials, fuels, construction costs. They've been absorbed. How have they been absorbed? Significant turnover in staff. So there's the savings on the staff side that's actually helped that happen. But then again, that prevents you achieving some of the things that you want to see. I mentioned those underlying challenges because they're the things that you're going to face in the next round of the budget, and that there will be some difficult decisions as a consequence of that. As you all know, interest rates have continued to rise. Now, whilst the Bunyip one payout certainly insulated this council from the impact of significant increases in finance charges, but looking forward, how that actually plays out may also test our budget balancing in the future. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. It's refreshing, but it's also concerning.
Oh.
Thank you. Another question, Colin?
Just, were any of the auditors at the meeting, were they suggesting any way of paying for these future expenses?
Councillor, that's not an area they go into. They certainly look at overall sustainability, and that they would, as it stands, would be questioning that we address some of those concerns, but basically it comes back to us to deal with that issue.
Well, how did they comment on the rate take that we got at the moment? So the rate, I see it went up $1 million for the general rates from 22 to for the year. So I'm just wondering whether they think that we should be going harder on ratepayers.
Council, that's not normally an area that they'll get into. I suspect those are questions you probably hold until we get our evaluation from ASCOSA on they're visiting us on the 12th of December, and we'll get their report thereafter. They're the ones that are going to focus in on financial sustainability, and they will certainly be focused in on the overall level of rates. It's one of their part of their charter.
Yes, thank you, Nigel. I hope that answered your questions, Councillor Collins. I think the ASCOSA report is going to be an interesting one. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Michael?
Thanks, Mayor Bill. In the Audit and Risk Committee, Nigel, I asked about the valuation of the assets that were budgeted at 242 million for the year and came in at $10 million less at 232.4. Did we get to the bottom of why that was?
The councillor, the question there, you're looking at the statement of financial position and the budgeted amounts versus the final amount. Like, as part of this accounting exercise, I haven't actually addressed that in particular at the moment, but could you keep in consideration one of the other parts of the resolution from the committee was that we undertake a comprehensive review against budget. So I suspect that would be the best place. We'll deal with that in detail rather than a verbal answer. And my intention is to put that on the agenda for the next council meeting.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nigel. Further questions?
Just one last question, just to round off the surplus conversation, because it came up in the audit and risk. So the surplus of 0.7 includes a grant payment that was made on the 30th of June 2023 for about $1.7 million. So to the extent that we say that that's the surplus we achieve, is that because we've matched that grant funding to some future expenditure that we've effectively accrued a cost against that, or?
Council, I think this is similar to the question that Councillor Collin was asking in terms of reconciliation of what that surplus is about. No, it's not committed in that way. It's part of your 23-24 budget as a general financial support. The simple reconciliation I was trying to explain before was that, yes, you're showing a surplus of 760,000. Now, what's quite a coincidence is that what you need to look at is not the 1.7 million that was received in advance on the 30th of June. You also need to look at what was received in advance for the previous financial year. So it's the net difference, which is the effect on the budget. And you'll see that in the final financial statements where the adjustments are made. That the net difference happens to be 758,000. So that's why I'm saying your surplus is pretty much that 770. The underlying surplus is a 770 less the 758 gives you around about 12,000 surplus, which is pretty much in line with where we started at the beginning of the financial year. Next year is in accordance with council decision making.
Sorry, just to round it out. So if we didn't receive the 1.7, then we have a deficit. We haven't committed the 1.7, and in the grant he said last year was 700. So,
Yeah, councillor. Now the underlying surplus would be the same. Just we wouldn't be making the adjustment of the amount received in advance. I'm really not a great advocate of the accounting. The accounting rules for quite a number of years have said for what they call general purpose grants, and we get two of them. General purpose is a grant that we receive that it is up for council to decide where it's going to be allocated to. Unlike a grant that we get for a particular road. So for a particular road, we do the accounting, not the cash, we do the accounting in the year that we spent it. So if we received a grant for a road in advance, we wouldn't actually treat it the way we do these general purpose grants. We show it in accounting terms. Sorry for the accounting lesson. We show it in accounting terms in the year that we actually built the road. For these general purpose grants, the rules for some years have said you shall show the money when you receive it, which is very abnormal in general accounting terms and very difficult to compare other than outside local government. But the other question, I dare go here, but the other question is, why are you receiving these in advance? Some years ago, this trend started 50% in advance, and last year was 75% in advance. We're going along trying to plan our cash flow, and Andrew sits there on the 30th of June, and all of a sudden 1.7 million drops in the account. The reason we're receiving it is another level of government is trying to make their books look a little bit better and make ours look crazy, effectively, because that other level of government probably had a little bit of money up their sleeve. Hope nobody's listening to this. We might get it next year.
And thank you, Nigel. Further questions, councillors? If not, we've got recommendation 2 there, that the reports and recommendation of the meeting of the Light Regional Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting held Tuesday, 21st of November 23, numbered 1 to 6, as this may be adopted. Did I ask if you would like to withdraw any of these matters? Right. I have a recommendation there and moved by Councillor Fabio. Someone second, that's Councillor Allison. Any further discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. And thank you, Nigel. It was very well presented. Thank you. And thank you for the questions, councillors, too, because that's what we're here for. We move on now to section 10, which is another very, very forensic report from Infrastructure and Environment Project Update, which is we're looking forward to the progress of most of these matters. So, are there any questions, councillors, in relation to section 10.1? Councillor Simon.
Yes, thank you. If you allow me a little bit of time with this, because there's a fair list of stuff in there. So I've got about 4 questions if I can. So number one is it says on the Cliff Road stormwater, it says additional pipes on the Cliff Road to prevent localized flooding. Now, Cliff Road, unless it's a different Cliff Road that I think, but I think it's the one in Roseready. That's been sort of sealed, I don't know, maximum 2 years ago, probably less than that. And then obviously nothing has changed there. So how is it that these stormwater pipes been put under there now? So how wasn't it foreseen that whatever that flooding is, wasn't seen before, and now we're gonna have to cut open the brand new road and put a pipe in and close it in again?
Megan, may I pass that to you?
Through the chair, I'll get some further details on that particular project, but my understanding is that it was because of a particular property that's adjacent to Cliff Road, and we needed to make sure that water was able to be removed from that property. But I'll get some further details and get back to you.
Thanks, Megan. What was the other one, Councillor Simon?
Yes, please. So the next one would be the Grey Street Pump Station upgrade and rising main replacement. It says identified to align with the Grey Street upgrade project. So it says here in progress, though. On the other hand, the Grey Street project is finished. Or I mean, there's some paving to be done. But so is that means that this upgrade has been finished as well? Because it says in progress here.
Thank you, Megan.
Through the chair, I believe there's some minor works still completed with the CWMS works, which were adjacent to the Grey Street Road project.
Next question, Councillor Simon.
Yes, please. The Engelville Bridge. It says that City of Playford have completed a document, and there's consultants being engaged, and especially it's consultant with specialized heritage knowledge to submit a proposal for the construction of a new pedestrian bridge. If I could remember correctly, last time we talked about it, we were sort of thinking that probably the best way is to just put a new bridge over the existing abutments, keep it as simple as possible. This sounds like an extremely drawn out and expensive sort of exercise. And I just wondered where we're at with that.
Thank you, Megan.
Through the chair. We've been following up with the City of Playford to ascertain what direction they might be going. We have put forward the views of this group that have been informally advised to us. They're requesting the services of a heritage architect to try to design a new bridge that may look or replicate or have some element of the original bridge. That's what we're waiting for.
Thank you, Megan.
We're paying for that in conjunction.
Through the chair, the amount that council have committed to the project is what we've advised Playford will be paying.
From memory, do we have a motion on that?
I'm pretty certain we did.
And how much was that? I can't remember.
It was a substantial amount.
Wasn't there another motion later that we talked about when we were going to do this, and it was nowhere near 600,000.
Yes, through the chair, I can't remember the exact figure, but the motion did say that we will only pay up to work that are being done.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. We have advised Playford we need to see the new project, or the new proposal, sorry, before we'll commit to any further funds. But they are aware of what council have already committed as the total project funds that we were originally committing to.
Thank you, Megan. I think Simon has one more.
If I may, there's the IAM review of transport assets. It says condition audit of existing transport assets has been completed. I just wondered, and it says that it's being, the findings are being reviewed. I just wondered if we are able to see that report, because it seems like that report's been completed. Is there a way that we can see that, the elected membership?
Through the chair, the report is not in a condition that we would present to you normally. We're not completely happy with or satisfied with the findings of it, which is why we're doing a complete review of it, and we're making sure that the details are correct. Just reviewing as you would any report from a consultant.
Thank you, Megan. Councillor Peter.
Regarding the Angle Vale Bridge, it seems to me that to build a pedestrian bridge is going to be enormously expensive, and we have a modern steel traffic bridge there now, and it would appear to, in my estimation, to construct, to prefab an outrigger section to go on the side of the bridge for pedestrians, and all the vintage timber that was washed away and that, and the abutments that exist there today are really relics of the past. And my view is that we should look at modern alternatives, functional alternatives, which would be far more economical to do.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. That's Councillor Peter. That's a very good observation. There's no doubt. But I think the Playford Council are actually driving this project, and I think they're quite a way down the track at this point in time as to how it's going to be reconstructed. And I think this probably we may have been a little bit late in providing that type of concept.
Is there any? Oh, sorry.
Can I make a comment on this?
Yes, certainly.
There's, I understand your point, Peter, but there's very strong community feeling, particularly in the Angle Vale area, that they want to get a heritage looking sort of structure. Obviously, it's got to be a modern one, but it's got to have a heritage sort of flavour. It's the logo for the Angle Vale community is the bridge, and they talk about the bridge and they use it as their main focus. So Playford is under probably very strong pressure to put a heritage flavour to a modern bridge. And those of you that have been there, there's no access at the moment. You can't walk across that bridge, it's too dangerous. There's a playground area, there's a lovely reserve that can't be used at the moment. And if it did have a good access for bikes and so forth, it would really be beneficial to the community. So I think we've got to look at what they're doing. Obviously, we've got to say how much we want to spend, but we've got to have a bridge there, a pedestrian bridge, and Playford's going to be under pressure to do a reasonably good job, and we've got to back them up a little bit. I think we've obviously got to beat reasonably what we spend, but that was my opinion.
So,
thank you, Councillor.
If I can just add to that, what we've got is it's a request for quote has gone out to actually get an understanding for the design side of things. There'll be a lot further information that we've brought back into the chamber for this chamber to have a comment and just input into the decision making. So this is not. Don't think the next thing you find out is driving down Heaslip Road and they're building a bridge. That we're a long way from that point.
Thank you, Richard, for that. That's refreshing to know, and thank you, Councillor Bill, too, for providing that, because I think it's been quite some time since we've had this discussion in this chamber in relation to that bridge, and we can forget things pretty quickly. Councillor Collins?
Is there a quick way to find motions from previous meetings apart from go through the minutes? Because I'm sure we had a motion about this.
Action list.
What the, you repeat what you said about the second motion of
I'm going from memory here. Yeah, I believe.
Is there a way to find it quickly? Because I was just going to go back. I just can't remember the month that we made it. So I just wanted for my, just if we could see it, then it could be up there and we wouldn't be, I think we've covered it before in a previous meeting. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, just through the chair as a rule, any motion or action recommendation that's not actioned would sit in our action list. So I'm trying to think, was it one done in infrastructure and sustainability meeting? But I thought a lot of that came across. But okay, we'll follow it up though.
Well, thanks everybody for that. And are there any further questions on that particular matter, the infrastructure and sustainability reports? If not, I have a recommendation at the bottom of page 20. Someone like to move that way? Councillor Lynn. Someone like to second that? Councillor Fabio. Further questions, councillors, comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. We move on now to section 12, reports for information. Temporary road closures for the 2 Christmas functions. Any questions, councillors? Pretty straightforward. Councillor Lynn.
Lady from the Thunder put on Facebook that if they don't get more volunteers, there won't be one next year.
That's a bit premature when they haven't even had one this year yet. No, I don't. I think that might have been a bit of tongue in cheek.
I can just put a bit of context around that. So there's currently on the Kapunda Christmas Street Party Committee, there is 7 volunteers. 3 of those people belong to the same family, so it's husband, wife, and daughter. So obviously understanding it's quite a workload for one household to shoulder. So year on year, they always put it out for more volunteers, but and volunteers come and go, to be honest. If you look at the people that are on the committee at the moment, President's certainly different to the people that were on the committee when I was, which was only 3-4 years ago, something like that. So so they are quite a transient group as such. It's always good to, you know, that there's some level of continuity there, at least to pass the experience and the knowledge on. And I believe that will be the case again this year, even if the majority of the committee does change.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fabio. I've been asked to open the Kapunda Street Party, and it's quite an honour. And I'm also been asked to focus perhaps on volunteers and sponsorship in my opening address, and I'll certainly do that, because I think Councillor Fabio is quite right. It's often left to just a handful of people, and they're getting tired. We do need to get out there, and we do need to get more sponsorship for these events. Our business houses benefit greatly from them. There's no question about that. Certainly the hotels. They're not putting their hand in their pocket, and they need to. And of course, the volunteers, this wonderful family that have been prepared to do this, it wouldn't happen if they didn't. And I thank the council and the council staff who have supported them to this state and have got them to the level now that this event's going to happen. Because they can easily sort of pull the pin and nothing happens, and that would be a great tragedy for our 2 towns. So we'll see where we go from here, but I think we do need to start to bang the drum about volunteers and also the business houses that should be putting their hand in their pocket also. We're not seeing it. Councillor Simon.
If I can make a comment, I was talking to Councillor Lynn earlier, or she was talking to me really, and you just compared the 2 committees and the 2 situations between Freeling and Kapunda, and Freeling is just such a different situation. We got many volunteers. There's every single business is involved. They're putting money into it. Everybody's excited about it. Right. It's a big community spirit, and everybody loves it, and they work together, and they have a great outcome. So I just not sure what's wrong with Kapunda, but we got to change.
That's all we have. Try and find out.
But again, if I may, through the chair,
Yes,
this has been an ongoing issue for a number of years. And without getting into the nuts and bolts of it, the Freeling Christmas party seems to be very cohesive in the sense that, generally speaking, all the community events that are planned for Christmas tend to happen and gravitate as an extension of the Christmas street party in Freeling. That hasn't been the case here in Kapunda for one reason or another. So, traditionally in the past, we've had the Christmas street party committee. We've, in the recent times, we've had like a late night shopping type activity for many of the shop owners. Then on top of that, we've had the lighting of the Christmas tree, the big Norfolk pine up the top end near the bakery there. And then on top of that, also we've had Christmas carols, which have all occurred on different nights. There has in the past been a suggestion that if all those 4 events were sort of rolled into one, then the volunteers from the different committees could work in a conjoint sort of effort to put on something bigger and better. At this stage, that's only been a consideration that hasn't come to fruition. So again, it's really up to the committees. That's not really a direction or something that I believe council should be suggesting. I think in good faith and in good time, I think they will come to the conclusion that perhaps that is a better way to go about it.
Yeah, that's a good description, I think, and thank you, Councillor Simon, too, because that's a good description of what's happening in Freeling. It is, they're quite different. I remember many years ago, I organised a street party here by myself. I did the rubbish round on a Friday and the street party that night, and they were pretty big events. The street was closed from the Clare Castle Hotel right down to Prince of Wales. And we had Ferris wheels and merry-go-rounds and little farms for the children with little animals in them and all of that. The times were different, and the times were quite different. And we got an enormous contribution from the business community at that stage. And you could do those things. You could just pay those people to come along and set up and do it. Now this is not happening because the business community is not putting their hand in their pocket to any large extent. Nevertheless, having said that, and I'm being unkind, I could be. I don't know how they've been asked or not. And what's been presented to them to react to. So I think we need to investigate that and see if we can't find out why they're not contributing to the level they should. So but I think it's a healthy thing that we've got to this level, and I'm just so proud of our council here that we've this year got behind them bigger than we've ever have in the history of the council. Got behind both events, and I can see they're both going to be very, very good events for our communities. That's what we're here to do, isn't it? To try and promote our communities and have for families and the young ones to enjoy where they live. So thank you.
One other thing, the other while it springs to mind, the other point of difference, I guess, is the Freeling for you, Simon, the Freeling event there. Basically, they charge to a certain degree for rides and activities. So you get a ride pass, which is very reasonably priced, I must say. And then that enables you to go on X number of rides, so however many times. Whereas the Kapunda one, I guess, prides itself to have that point of difference, which is to make things as free as possible. And that's not just for the community of Kapunda, but it's also enables people from Freeling and other outlying areas that perhaps don't have as much disposable income to be able to come to the event here and and treat their kids to a good night out without any form of guilt or having to tighten the purse strings in other areas. So that's perhaps a little bit of point of difference. So that does make it economically a lot more harder to sustain the Kapunda event. And therefore, to your point, Mayor Bill, it does rely a lot more heavily on donations. So next year, I've been asked if I'd take a more active role in the KBA, which I have agreed to. And it's not one to advocate for the Christmas street party or to advocate for the other, but certainly if there's some bridge building that can be done between the two, I will certainly make that a point of priority.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor Fabio. Any further questions, councillors, on these two matters? Not at least. Sorry, Councillor Lind.
The Freeling street party, I've just lost it on here. I spoke to Jason about where they're closing it off, and I don't know if he spoke to you, Megan, about it. He did. We need to change that close off area and take, otherwise people won't be able to get into the Foodland car park. And we need to change where we're going to close it off and take it to the main street and then, yeah, do you understand?
Thank you, Megan.
Through the chair, I believe the Freeling Foodland car park is being used for the children's rides for the Christmas Street party, which is why the road closure is where it is. They are aware and supportive of the road closure location.
But how are people going to get into the Foodland? They're going to be open. And how are they going to get in there unless we change the road closure? And Jason said he understood that.
Through the chair, the event application and the event organisers have made arrangements for where their event will be held, and the Foodland car park will not be available for parking in. Hence the reason the road is closed to the car park.
So we need to bring it to the back of Foodland so that they can walk in there. That's what we need to change.
So Foodland will still be accessible. The building will still be accessible. By pedestrians.
Okay.
By pedestrians. Not for vehicles.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. It's okay.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you, Megan. Our next matter, councillors, is a land acquisition on Kapunda, East Terrace, Kapunda. I think if you've read this report, it's full of frustration, I think, from the author's point of view and probably from everyone else's. There's two pieces of landlocked land there that nobody seems to want to take ownership of, or we can't identify the owners of. Any questions in relation to this, councillors? I think there's a bit of a conclusion at the bottom of page 24. It just sits there till someone puts their hand up in the future, if they ever do. At the bottom of page 25, there's a recommendation on the screen there that we receive the reports for information be received. That's the last three reports. Thanks, Councillor Lynn and Councillor Michael. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Now we move on to councillors, onto section 13, reports for decision. 13.1 is the public art grant program and the funding submissions received. Okay, and the author's Gemma, the Economic Development Officer. I don't know who to pass that to, Kyrie. Okay, councillors, are there any questions in relation to this matter? We've had the presentation earlier tonight, of course, from the gallery, but we've got two others. Councillor Peter.
Application 2, Mel's Art Studio application. We don't have. Now, I'll preface this by saying this could be, these street sculptures could be, suppose I'd say, causing differences of viewpoint and opinion. And I'd like to see before applicant 2's application is approved, a difference, an explanation of what's proposed. Now, as it is, we're proposing to, where are we? Anyway, we're proposing to give $3,000 for this, but there's no outlining of what's involved or Yes, thanks, councillor Fabio.
Page 27.
Yes,
Sculpture depicting Indigenous people and their relationship with the planet.
well, what does that mean?
Well, what do you say?
I don't think it is. Sculptures depicting Indigenous peoples, plural, and their relationship with Kapunda. Which peoples and what about Kapunda? I think that this could be a contentious issue, and I couldn't vote for it as it stands. It's
Yeah, councillor Peter, we're in our community town square, we have a section up in the back corner which has been strictly put aside for Indigenous people to represent their Ngadjuri nation. It's been very slow in getting anything done, apart from the totem that's been put up there. They haven't been painted or anything else. I would assume that this would be an art sculpture that would be put into that particular place that would represent or be indicative of the Ngadjuri people. I'm with you. I think it's a bit vague in what that actually is, but I think we need to be a little bit conscious that the Aboriginal people work in mysterious ways sometimes in when they want to present something and how, and we've got to give them that opportunity to do it the way they see it.
well, I would like to have an expose of their mysterious ways.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
Okay, yes, I give up. We'll leave it at that, councillor.
Mr. Mayor, if you're in the agenda, the attachments, it says depicting Indigenous people and how they are melded into nature and lived according to their environment in Kapunda and surrounds. And the sculpture is to be a family joined into rocks, trees, animals and water, depending on each other. So it's probably reasonably a large sculpture by the sound of it.
Did you read that, councillor Peter, in the appendices?
No, I didn't.
Is there?
But the decision is going to be made by Mel Craig, is it, the artist?
Well, I would assume it would be, yes. He's the one that's put the application forward. Kyron will help me.
Yeah, I guess through the chair, I guess depending on the size and the scale and the location of the sculpture, it may very well need a development application and approval, which would be a condition of providing the grant. So there's certainly a gateway there for council's planners to have regard to where and what and how big and the risk associated with having a sculpture in public space. I guess the other element that was included in the application under the area where they've got to describe the value of the project to community and what collaboration, etc., and community support they'll achieve. The applicant has said they'll be seeking comments and opinions and getting positive feedback through social media and town awareness of the proposed installation, and also consulting with Indigenous leaders. So I guess if it is a contentious topic for the council, we could put some conditions around approving a stakeholder engagement process. So that's something we could condition if that's the council's wish.
So, and councillor Peter, you would be more satisfied if we were to bring this back to a future meeting with a little more detail?
Yes, and my colleague alongside suggested that maybe some proposed work could be illustrated with artwork, and that could be provided to council. And after all, it's not the GAP that decides. It's not the council administrative employees that decide. It's the elected council. And so what I'm asking for is more information. And I think generalised words don't sufficiently describe what could be, and I'm perplexed by the term mysterious ways.
Oh, look, I'll withdraw that statement if that makes you feel comfortable, councillor Peter. It was really not meant to cause offence, believe me. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. Mal Craig is on our mural committee, and at the last mural committee meeting, this project was discussed briefly, and Mal is very much open to suggestions. What you'll be in is certainly would be happy, I'm sure, to produce a concept sketch. In fact, he'd be doing that before he did it anyway, I would imagine. And the other thing is, if it would seem that a logical place to put it would be in the back half of the town square, which has got the Indigenous theme, but that's council land, community land. So we would certainly have an input into what should be on there. In other words, I don't think if I'm picking a vote, councillor, I think that with sufficient controls already, that what we produce will be acceptable. And I don't know whether you know Mal, but he's not one of these people who go out on a limb and barge through. So he would be very consultative in the way he would do this. So I'm quite confident that you would find that what was end up with would be acceptable, and that we'd have sufficient input into it.
The two examples of Malcolm Craig's work already in Kapunda.
Three, says he.
Three other now. Three. One of them's outside the bookshop, which is probably the most photographed item in the whole of the town. And the other one sits out the front of the art gallery, which is Map the Miner in a different format, having a snooze. He's quite an outstanding artist, there's no doubt about that. But I can understand where Councillor Peter's coming from. It's same old, it's a bit contentious, so we've got to be a little careful in how we deal with that we make sure everyone's comfortable, otherwise why do it? And I think perhaps if we can get a concept design from Malcolm, and I think furthermore, an agreement with the Nadgery people might be handy as well, to ensure that they're comfortable with that also, particularly if we're going to put it on that corner of that property, which we've encouraged them right from the very beginning to take ownership of in terms of what they want to see there. And they've done very little about it, but that's how they operate at times. Councillor Dean?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. The Nadgery people do need to have input into this, and I'm sure that will happen. The other sculpture worth mentioning is the one on the seat by the Soldier Memorial Hall, which is the most recent one. And the craft shop people say that is incredibly popular. And it is, in fact, I think probably the three that he's done the best one. So he has considerable expertise in this area, and I'm sure that what he would come up with would be very good. But it does need to be, as Councillor Peter said, done in a way that doesn't create a whole lot of unwelcome argument and strife, and I'm pretty sure that will happen. Yeah. We can make sure it happens that way.
I think that's a good explanation. Thank you, Councillor Dean and Councillor Simon.
Yeah, I just find it a bit curious that we're only questioning Mal's art. I mean, we don't know what Aarons and Johnson's history mural going to look like, and nobody's questioning that. And we're not, I don't know what those Kapunda Main Street planter box is going to look like, and we're not questioning that either. So I think we have to have enough trust in these artists that they're not going to do anything offensive or stupid. And as Dean pointed out, I'm sure we're going to see concept drawings, and I don't see any risk whatsoever or issue whatsoever with any of these, and I'm happy to move the motion.
Further discussion, councillors? Councillor Michael.
The only comment I would make is that, I mean, a lot of this has been set out in the application, so let's just get on with it. Yeah.
Well, councillors, we've had a fair debate. I'll look for the motion if I can find it somewhere here. It's on page 27 do I have someone to move that? Oh, right, sorry, it has been again. All those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Peter, for your contribution. It was a worthy debate. We move on now, councillors, if I can find my place. I'm getting a bit tired. Uh, 13.2, the invitation to submit feedback to the Department of Human Services State Disability Inclusion Plan discussion paper. Any questions on this particular matter, councillors? Here's a little bit of housekeeping. And thanks, Councillor Lynn. Would someone like to second that? Any questions on this matter, councillors, or comments? Councillor Fabio, second. Yep, thank you. Questions or comments, councillors? Thank you, Pepper, for this, and if you could pass on our thanks to Lorinda also. I think we're keeping on top of these matters, and that's good. Moving on now to, didn't I? I'll put the recommendation, councillors. My apology, I'm getting tired. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. We move on to 13.3, which is, I thought might be the elephant in the room, but I don't think it is after hearing the presentation earlier and feeling the vibe in the room. The private code amendment for Freeling East, and I must thank Craig and his team sincerely for an excellent report. I looked at that and I shuddered, thinking, well, how am I going to deal with this? But when you start reading it, it keeps you interested, and it's a journey that many in this room have probably been on before with this particular proposal. Down many years ago, I think it was Peter Vardy from the Crows, wasn't he involved with this? Yeah, well, he owns it, yeah. So it goes back a long way, and has always been contentious, and by what Andrew Humby said to us tonight, it remains contentious by the community consultation that took place. This report here, of course, is really only suggesting that we're putting a submission forward.
Can you turn your...
I'd just like to know what the wording that council authorises the chief executive officer who may delegate to appropriate council staff to settle and submit the response to the Freeling. What does that mean? The draft? Yes, I did.
That's what the recommendation.
Yeah, the draft. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So that's all right.
And that's right. Unless we want to question what's in that draft.
Yes.
And we've got Craig here to answer those questions if anyone has any concerns with what's being proposed. I read through it and I thought it was excellent. And I don't have any questions at all. Others may have. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Simon?
Well, I think it's an excellent submission of full support. I just one thing that I don't really understand is why we only want to have one-story buildings. I mean, it says that it aligns better with what's it called? Align with the established neighbourhood zone provisions, but is that who's against two-story buildings, or what's wrong with two-story buildings?
Community consultation talked about that. Well, 3 people did. Yes, please, Craig. Yeah, please. Sorry.
You kind of already have. I personally don't have a particular position on two-story buildings, but given the feedback from the community and the, I guess, prevalence of single-story, I thought that there's no harm in perhaps looking at continuing with that. But if councils are in mind to be more flexible and look at two-story, that is a matter for council. Certainly, it's envisaged in the zoning that has been considered and contemplated by the proponents.
Councillors, any, councillor Fabio?
If I may, I just remind, through the chair, if I could just remind council that through previous discussions about this development, the objection in particular to two-storey buildings was specifically more so around the buildings that overlook the cemetery, and that people felt that there was like a bit of an invasion of privacy while you're in the cemetery, and you obviously you know, grieving or whatever, that it would feel quite invasive to those people if there was, you know, some neighbours sitting on their balconies or whatever overlooking that sort of process. So it just seemed a little bit awkward at the time. So I guess based on community consultation, that's where they're at.
Thank you, Fabio. Further questions, councillor?
Yes, that's through the chair.
Please.
This is just a code amendment, isn't it? So it may never eventuate.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to bear in mind, because when Andrew Humby, or whatever his name was listening to all of the thoughts, he did it. He really was very good at that, telling them that this is only a code amendment and it may never happen. Or it could happen, and it will go to further public consultation if it's about to go happen. And the final idea thing is that the minister has the last say. Is that right?
It is, if I may, through the chair, Mr. Mayor. No, this is the consultation on the policy change. There wouldn't be a further unless there's a change to what is proposed. But you're right, Councillor Reichstein, in that this is a proposal for a policy amendment. And ultimately, the feedback will be collated, any minor adjustments, or I would say minor adjustments, any adjustments that the proponent wishes to make, they'll have be a matter for them in terms of what they prepare then and present to the minister if they take that step.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. That was well put. Well, councillors, we've had our fair discussion on this matter. Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation, which is, oh, pardon me, I need a mover and a seconder, of course. Councillor Dean and Councillor Peter. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Craig. And that will be passed on, I think, to Andrew Huddy. Yes. Councillors, we move on now to questions on notice. We have a question at 14.1, the Hard West collection at Hewitt. Thanks, Councillor Michael.
Thanks, Mayor.
It's not exactly Hewitt, is it?
It's not exactly Hewitt. So it was feedback actually from more of the sort of rural living areas around hard waste collection. And, you know, there was a view expressed to me that perhaps the frequency of the hard waste collection may be contributing to some of the illegal dumping issues that we've got. I don't know. I don't have a view on that. I assume that the hard waste collection is pretty popular because the bookings do, in my own personal experience, evaporate fairly quickly. So appreciate the response that I've got here from the staff. And I guess it'll be a matter for council to consider heading into the next budget around how we deal with this, because it would mean effectively that ratepayers would need to pay more in anticipation of receiving a quarterly hard waste instead of a biannual. I think that's what it boils down to, doesn't it? Yep.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's one that needed to be asked. Thank you. We have no questions without notice. We have Councillor Fabio.
May I, and sorry, this has been a late one, a question without notice. Just if I noticed myself and Councillor Emery, and I suspect a few other councillors have received a remittance of $226, but with no explanation as to what it is. Obviously, given the fact that we have to pay tax on our earnings or whatever, could we just get a explanation as to what exactly that was, as to whether that is allowance that's taxable or not? CPI adjustment, right? Thank you very much. I'll withdraw that question without notice then.
Gee, I'm glad you asked it. I thought they'd made a mistake. Yeah. Councillors, we move on now to motions on notice. And we have one here for support of new business options. And thanks, Councillor Collin, for raising this matter. Questions, councillors? Comments? I think it's it's fair and it's been well thought out, and I think it's something that we all have discussed in the chamber in the last few council meetings, and it's something we really do want to get to the bottom of and get an outcome where we can. So if there's no questions or comments, I'll ask for a mover.
I'll second.
Yep. Yeah, hang on. You'd like to speak to it?
Yeah, I'd like to move the motion, and it is self-explanatory, and I have been concerned about this car parking fund for a while, and with help from Richard, this is the safest idea we've come up with, which doesn't offend any of the legal requirements inside the Act. But I would say, I think this is only a start. I think we do have to, with Craig and Dick, to actually get a one that's much more flexible. I think what we should be doing is setting the amount every year when we set the budget, is set the amount that the car parking fund is. And then, things are, if we do have a town like Arndorf, then we can put it back up to 3,900. But at the moment, I think it's way too high. And I think this is just a temporary measure to get us through to where we need to be.
Yeah, well put, Councillor Collin. Any further comments or questions, councillors? Councillor Simon?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment. I think it's a good motion. I'll be supporting it. I've just, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that the first point that the report that's going to be to us in January about the process involved to replace the Kapunda District Centre car park fund with a new offset scheme. That's the process we don't know unless the state government graces us with that information. So I'm just wondering if that point actually can be in there as such. I don't think Craig can make a report on something if you don't get that information, or is that something different?
Thank you, Craig.
I think what we've done is tried to keep this as loose as we can so that we can keep or get our report that covers a very broad area. There might be some things that won't be able to be achieved because of other matters, but our aim is to try and put something in place that actually can get around this. Again, the aim, I think, is to see people who put development applications in that might have a car parking requirement, that we can do something that's more flexible than what we've got, and encourage those development applications to be put in. So rather than, we know we've got some barriers in place. So.
And Craig might like to add another comment.
Sorry, just to add to, I think what your concern is, how will we do it? Well, the mechanics of that, if we don't have the information, that the use of such as in the lead up to those dot points is included for that reason, effectively. So if we have the information, we certainly want to bring it in because it's all linked together.
Thank you, Craig. And Councillor Fabio? Thanks, Councillor Fabio. Any further questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the recommendation there. All those in favour? Those against? And that's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on now to the Greenock Creek, and Councillor Collin, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. I'd like to move it and speak on it. I think for anyone who's been to Greenock, the creek is filling a lot with ash and also olives and wild palm. So I think it is, I know Peter, Councillor Peter has been on about this before, but I think we just need a report. I think if we can also get the funding through the Northern Yorks or some funding from elsewhere. But I think it's also important that we involve the community over there, because I think there's a few people who are very environmentally conscious, and I think if we can harness their enthusiasm instead of their negative reports on what's going on in another matter over there, I think it would be good. And I think it's if we could, I just think it's if we can get.
No, thank you so much, Councillor Collin. Andrew Philpott's been right on top of this over a number of years, and he has over that period been successful in securing funding through Northern Yorks It's going to be a lot easier now because in Northern and Yorks, before he had to deal with Adelaide Hills landscape board, which Adelaide Hills and whatever, which was far more difficult than he'll come up against this time. And I'm sure there is an appetite in that community down there to see this happen. It's the one downside of Greenock, that creek. Part of the issue has been a lot of it goes through private property. And that's the elephant in the room, to try and work through that. And I think in the past they've had a great deal of difficulty. It doesn't stop us from revisiting that to find out if those property owners still have the same feeling or the same views on what they had before. But that was a big inhibitor in getting that creek flowing and getting it cleaned up. But I think I'm really pleased to see this motion on our books. Thank you. I've got a mover in a second. Councillor, any further questions or councillors' questions or comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. That's a ripper. Next one, 6.3, Noack Road. Councillor Collin, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move it and speak on this one. I think a few Dutton Ward councillors have been notified by a few of the residents up there, notably Reuben Noack. But I've been up there and talked to Reuben, also to Philip, and also a few others who use this road, especially at harvest time. So they cut back through, then basically it will take you out to the Sturt Highway, and it will get a lot of our traffic off our road. So if you can shortcut off Tablelands Road, use this road, it'll get off our roads quicker and get onto Goyder Road, but and also onto an arterial highway. And I just think if we can work out how much it's going to cost, because I think it will save a lot of wear on a lot of other roads if we could utilise this road better.
Yeah, thanks for raising it and bringing it to our attention, and thanks for supporting Mr. Noack. Fabio, Councillor Fabio.
I spoke briefly in the presence of CEO Richard Dawson to Reuben on that engagement night that we had here, and it was good to see that he made the effort to come along and be the spokesperson for obviously the landholders in that area. Shortly thereafter, I actually did visit the road just to refamiliarise myself, make sure it was the one I was thinking of, and I do agree with Councillor Colin Ross's recommendations, and geographically speaking, it does take, like you said, traffic off the main roads. There's quite some major arterial roads that come off of that which would benefit from it. In also Freshwater and up the top there, Mosey Road, I think, from memory. So I'll second that motion.
Thanks very much, Councillor Fabio. Further comments, councillors, questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. And I think this is a good example too of our community consultation process too, because Councillor Reuben Noack turned up and he's got an outcome. And I think that's really important. Yes. Yeah. I copped it for a while. Councillors, we come now to the last matter on our council agenda, 16.4. It's an update to Council's Code of Practice for Meeting Procedures. Councillor Kennelly has put a motion forward. Would you like to speak on your motion, Councillor Kennelly?
Yes. Pardon me, in the September meeting, the matter was brought up then, and it was put and carried, and the first part was put and carried, but the second part called for a report. Now, for the October meeting, we had the report, and I think that it was seen in September as a good idea. It was just that, an idea. Now, looking at the report that we got, and you'll see in the discussion that I have covered a number of points. For instance, council has the facilities, audio visual equipment and supporting arrangements for its monthly meetings to be held here at its principal office in Kapunda. And we've got all the equipment, it's here. The proposal to hold some monthly meetings at the Hewitt Centre would require considerable effort and expense for an indefinite benefit. Now, back somewhere in the past, we did hold, and this was before microphones or anything like that, we did hold a council meeting at Hewitt, and the response was nil. We didn't have anybody in the gallery, and that's why I used the word indefinite, for an indefinite benefit. Now, we have everything we need here. We have the equipment, we have the facility, we've paid for the equipment, we have our principal council office through 2 doorways, we have our staff here, and I think that the arrangement we have now is excellent. Now, the one thing that I would put to you is that our monthly meetings are available on the LRC website and YouTube, and we should make this more widely known to our community. And I don't know how you do that, but I'm sure it can be facilitated. And so just with the rider that the motion is put to council now, and we get some ideas, formulate some ideas to publicise the fact that our community can find our council meetings on a couple of sites. Anyway, I propose the motion, of course. Now, look for a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Councillor Fabio had a question.
If I may speak to the motion, I don't disagree with the motion the way it is written, that we take out the text to be held at least 3 times in the next 12 months, starting October 2023, which is obviously passed, at the Hewitt Centre. So I'm not totally against that. I don't think we should quantify it. However, I do as an elected member see the importance of taking ourselves on a somewhat of a roadshow to the different communities, to the different areas, for the simple fact that there are a lot of community members that are not technically savvy, and might find it a bit inhibitive to be able to travel up to Kapunda in the case of where, elderly people or people that perhaps aren't confident driving at night, or et cetera, et cetera. I think certainly we've got the technology that is available to be able to circumvent the need to have fancy audio visual equipment. In fact, all our iPads are equipped with cameras and whatever. We could certainly do it as a Teams meeting, which is then recorded and uploaded to YouTube to facilitate that necessity. Also, I look at the different way in a lot of different South Australian councils in the way they conduct their meetings. And if I draw reference to the Naracoorte Lucindale Council, they don't have audio-visual equipment other than what appears to be like a webcam that's situated. In fact, those people, when they speak, as I am speaking now to a microphone, the council elected members just simply stand in their position and speak in their outside voices, which would probably suffice, or would be sufficient to be heard across the chamber, and more so from like a centrally mounted webcam or anything like that. So although I understand it can mean a little bit of discomfort and a little bit of change to the norm, perhaps something that, you know, different to what we've been used to, I think change is a good thing. And certainly if we've got, if it's supported by the community, then I think it's a good thing. If we do it with an indefinite amount of time and leaving it a bit open-ended and we find that it isn't supported, then we can say, well, we tried, and resort back to the status quo.
We have met at Hewitt before and nobody turned up. Councillor Dean?
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I'm sympathetic to the view that Councillor Fabio has put. I think I voted for this three times, even though I was a bit dubious about putting it in there. But I do think that we without that in there, we have the opportunity to meet as we choose to by resolution of council in other venues. Having been in the Hewitt one before without any application, that was absolute disaster as far as I was concerned, because I couldn't hear a thing basically because acoustics isn't very good. So there is some difficulty, I think, in doing it effectively. But I think the principle of meeting occasionally at Hewitt and at Freeling, if it's a suitable venue, is a good one. I mean, it's just what the cabinet does. It meets now and again in other locations, and I think that, but 3 times a year, I think, is too inflexible and too maybe too many. But I think the principle is the important bit rather than the number of times. And so the other question I've got, however, is, does this require 2/3 majority? Because it's a meeting procedure variation?
It does.
It does. Okay, thank you.
Councillor, we must understand too, our code of meeting practice already allows us to decide where we're going to meet. So if we wanted to meet at our next council meeting at Hewitt, we could decide that tonight and do it. So I'm wondering, you know, this motion seems to be a bit superfluous because it's being prescriptive, because it's telling us this is what we've got to do. When our code of meeting practice already tells us what we can do, and if it's the Chamber's view to do that at any time, we can. We're not restricted to October or whatever, any particular month at all.
That's what the other one said.
Excuse me?
Isn't that what the other motion said?
The other motion said that October, November, December.
To my, if I may, through the chair, to my opening comment on this, which I may just recap on my opening motion.
Councillor Collin, Fabio's got the floor.
Look, I respect the meeting protocol. If that's the case, then I'll be quiet.
Well, he's got his. Councillor Collin, your turn.
Can't speak twice in the motion. Anyway, I'd like to second it. I actually agree with him, with Peter. I think it's a waste of money. I think it's a little bit indulgent. We've already got a good chamber here. It works well, and I just don't think it's necessary personally.
Thanks, Councillor Collin. Sorry, you had spoken. So, my fault. Take the blame. I've got to get used to this. So where are we up to? Outside. Yeah, do you like to speak on
Yes,
that?
I would like to speak on it. There's nothing to stop us from having workshops at Hewitt if we feel like that we want to do it down there. We did, they worked very well. And if we don't stipulate meetings, it just comes, whatever happens. There's not to say you don't want any, but if you want a workshop and you want to have it down there, that's fine. That's just my opinion.
That's a fine opinion. It's a good one. It's what we currently do. We've had quite a few workshops and all our training took place down in Hewitt. So it's not trying to ignore the place at all, quite the opposite. I think we use it for its best purpose. And council meeting is not its best purpose because we haven't got the facility. Now, I think if we'd have had that report and got that motion vice versa, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The report was fairly clear on what the costs would be to do what we plan to do. And I think if you took that out to the ratepayers, they might get a bit cranky about that and ask them, why the heck you spend all this money building this chamber and all of a sudden you turn around, you're not going to use it 3 times a year. Doesn't make sense. If it was your business, we should do it. Further questions, councillors, comments? Councillor Michael?
Naturally, I'll speak against the motion. And I don't do that as a resident of Hewitt, although in some ways I do. I find it a little bit odd, and a little bit clumsy that we passed a resolution in September to the effect that we would meet at Hewitt. We asked for a report. We received the report. The report made a number of recommendations on possible dates that could occur, which was interpreted by some members as a mandate, and that wasn't the case, and that was explained on the evening. I'll make some further comments about the cost. I just wonder if we should obtain a report from council on how much residents of Hewitt contribute to this council by way of rates and see what that return actually looks like if Hewitt no longer forms part of Light Regional Council because we can't be bothered meeting there 2 or 3 times a year. To the extent that people don't turn up, that's their prerogative. I think this is the first time that residents of Hewitt have had an elected member live in their area. And there's a very important issue.
No, that's incorrect.
Recently, Mayor Bill. And there's some very important issues that will face people that live in Hewitt over the next couple of years that they may well want to engage with council on. So for all of those reasons, I'll be voting against it.
Further comments, councillor Simon?
Yeah, I mean, be certainly voting against this motion. I find it close to shameful that we're even having these discussions. I mean, I think it's like, to say, first of all, to say that, oh, we had a meeting at some point, it must have been more than 5 years ago, because I can't remember having met then. I've been at council for 5 years and nobody showed up back now. Like, look at this, chamber. Is anybody showing up tonight? Like, we're still meeting here. So, I mean, that's just a silly argument. The other thing is, even if you have one meeting and nobody shows up, we need to see, maybe we need to get people to get to know. So that's why I was thinking 3 meetings is a good idea. So, yeah, I find it sad that we're not willing to actually come to the people and give them a chance to come to our meetings. If after 3 times nobody ever showed up and people don't think it's a good idea, then we can go back to what we want to do. And then the other point, they said, like, oh, we just take it out and we have the opportunity to meet somewhere else. Yeah, we do, but we never do. Like, it's not like, again, I've been 5 years on this council. We never have had a council meeting in another spot. And all along, in all those 5 years, we would have had the chance to do that. But if you just leave it status quo, then we're not going to do it. That's why I think we need to just write it in there. We're actually going to do it. We force ourselves to do it and see how it turns out. And as Councillor Michael pointed out, Hewitt is a very important part of this council. It's only going to get more important. So I think we owe it to these people to come closer to them. So I'd definitely be against this.
Well, do we meet in Freelink next, or do we go to Wasleys?
Absolutely, it'd be a great idea. Yeah, Wasleys everywhere. Let's bring it to the people. Absolutely.
Further questions, councillors, or comments?
Just further to that, so yes, I'm voting against the motion. I support what Councillor Michael indicated. We did talk about this in September. It was voted on. We talked about it last month. I'd also like to point out that we talked about the cost of setting this up, but last meeting we voted to give money to the Catholic Church now for some upgrades. So that has a little bit of contentious issue from people in the local area that belong to a different denomination have asked why we're giving money to the Catholic Church. Now, we voted on it. I voted on it. I thought about it later. I think I spoke to Councillor Colin and said, actually, I probably should have voted against that because Catholic Church has a lot of money. They're very wealthy, and yeah. So side to that, we voted on that. So I think taking this to our local ratepayers in Hewitt and having a meeting there is a something that we're giving back to our local community. And it is a fair distance to travel. 3 Mudla Wirra Ward members here, we travel, and Councillor Bill travels the furthest. He's right on the edge down there. So, and we may get some people. If we don't, we don't. So be it. It's there, and if you want to come and have a chat to us all, be involved in the meeting. Look, tonight's meeting was full of deputisations. I didn't see anybody else, I don't think, in here that was just here for a chat. Maybe we've got some online, but hey, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well put, Councillor Allison, but I think it's a sign of the times. People don't turn up to council meetings. They just don't. It doesn't matter where you have them. You can have a Disneyland and they just don't come. They can watch it on screen now. They can do all those things. So yeah, they turn up then. That's just a fact, and that's why I just can't get my head around going to somewhere where no one's going to turn up anyway. Why are we doing it? Is this a feel good or just a look good, or is it the practical way of doing business?
just going on from that, I think it's good for our boundary reform to show that Hewitt people are a part of us, and we're going down there and showing some support to them too, because I know the Hewitt people don't want boundary reform, and look, it's good to show a bit of solidarity, I think. So.
All make good points. It's hard to argue. It's just the principle of the costs, having a purpose-built building to do something, having it out there in the marketplace that this council meets in its council chambers on the fourth Tuesday of the month. It's out there. That's our brand, and we're going to mess around with it. And when people don't know,
At the risk of being out of order, because I've already spoken once, despite the fact that some other elected members have spoken more than once, I'd like to say that, you know, your comment, Mayor Bill, and I respect what you say, but you fashion the comment as if to say, what are we doing? Are we just doing it for a show of votes or whatever, words to that effect? Well, why aren't we doing it is the other question. Is it because certain people here are afraid to travel a little bit? Because we're taking ourselves out of the comfort zone? Like, there's two arguments to all of that. Look, I don't know if we can amend the motion that Councillor Keneally has put forward. I certainly agree with what he's saying, that we shouldn't specify a number of times, and we shouldn't specify and we shouldn't specify. My name's not always sorry, but I don't think we should specify. And I did say this before, so I'm only repeating myself. I don't think we should specify the number of times that it should be held in the 12-month period, and I don't think we should specify specifically the Hewitt Centre. However, I do support the fact that we should get out there about a bit more, like I said, Freeling perhaps, Wasleys, whatever the case might be.
That is already in our code of practice. Thanks, Councillor Pavio. Councillor Collins, do you want to say something? I know we're messed up with who should be saying what and when. Peter moved the motion in the first instance. Well, I think we've almost talked ourselves out, have we, councillors? No, the way it's worked. We can't move an amendment because I don't think there is anyone to second it if we're following the rules of meeting procedure. But so I guess I don't have much choice, but other than to not give anyone else another chance, we need to put the motion. And I think we better read what the motion actually says, so we have it again. It's up on the screen, if we could. There it is. Councillors, that's the motion that's been put forward. We have a mover and we have a seconder of that motion. Are all those in favour? 3. Against? 4. And 5. Hang on, hands up for against? Against this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion is lost. Oh, okay. It makes the minutes. We have a division. All those in favour, if they could stand behind their chairs, please. And for the motion. Thanks, councillors. Yeah, keep standing. Councillors, we move on now to section 17 of our council agenda, which is the motions without notice. Do we have any motions without notice? Councillor Fabio?
Yes, I'd like to raise a motion without notice in response to the previous motion. I would like it worded that the council amend section 6.2 in its code of practice for meeting procedures to facilitate ordinary monthly meetings or something at locations other than Kapunda, but not defined a number of times, not define the location, basically. Yeah, Richard, I don't know if you want to jump in and help me out with that.
Yeah, sure.
Or I'll take advice even from Councillor Phillips Ryder.
Wouldn't that need to be a notice of motion at the next meeting?
I
It
think so.
requires a more debate, discussion than what we could provide now, I think.
Just to comment, as like we talked about, I'm supportive of, not just confining this idea to Hewitt, right? And I think, as the mayor pointed out, our procedures allow us to do this anyway. But I'm supportive of the idea that we broaden it beyond Hewitt.
You're too prescriptive. You're going to tie your hands behind your back. Because you can already do it now. The motion there is now saying it supports that as well as.
I'll retract that then, based on that.
Just through the chair, our current, as a result of 16.4, our current code of practice does not get amended. To amend our code of practice, it needs to be on the agenda as it was, as a motion on notice. So it needs to occur. So we can't amend that. What can be done tonight, should you choose, would be to move a motion to have a meeting at a particular location. Because our meeting procedures allow a decision of council to have a meeting at a particular location, whatever that is. So if you wish to move a motion without notice to that effect,
I'll based on that, I'll do exactly that. I'll go one step further and to put a definitive timing on it, so it doesn't stay open-ended. And this is very random, but I'm going to say the April meeting at Hewitt, at the Hewitt Centre.
We've got a motion without notice that we have the April meeting of council at Hewitt. Is that the wording you want, Councillor Fabio?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have
basically what I'm trying to achieve is to instigate this, and to enact or put into action this. I don't know if legislation is the right word, but that already exists, but hasn't to this day, through my understanding, been actually actioned. So I want to get the wheels in motion and flesh out what sort of support we do get from the community and perhaps that way we can also have a look at some of these perceived hurdles that we may have, which may just be perceived, or they might be real hurdles, but we won't know until we try.
So your motion, you like to word that so that the.
Oh, geez.
that council hold the April 2024 ordinary meeting at the Hewitt Centre.
Is that all you want in there? Nothing further?
That's fine. That's it.
All right, we've got a motion up there. Would someone like to second that?
Can I ask a question, please?
Certainly.
Because I think at our last meeting, there was some dates suggested for those 3 dates that would be specifically suitable because of the audit and, you know, our budget process and all this sort of stuff. Is the April meeting one of those, was that, or is that a unsuitable date in your mind?
April work a cure. Next meeting's meeting. Prefer not. Prefer not. March.
Well, what are we doing, councillors?
That'll work.
What are we doing? We've got a motion up there. We need someone to second that. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. So our next, our meeting next year will be at Hewitt in April 2024. Carried. Done. Well, councillors, that's it for the night. No confidential matters. First time for quite some time. It's quite a relief. We now move on to our next meeting, which will be on December the 12th. So it's only a couple of weeks' time due to Christmas break, etc. So bring your book.
I was going to bring out some good wine that night.
And I'll officially close the meeting, and I will apologise if I was out of order near the end there. I get a bit emotional about what we're talking about, and you can understand that. I don't say anything I don't mean. So thanks very much for your attendance, and we'll see you on December the 12th.